Hello, everyone. So welcome to our fourth workshop out of five, fourth out of five, on the CPR self-study and the ways that we want to help support you in thinking about your program as part of the self-study and be able to do the analysis that can make recommendations to yourselves about what you envision your program to look like in the future. And by future, it's not like, 2 generations from now. It's within the next few years. How are you going to respond to the world? How are you going to think about your students? Things like that. So today, oh, sorry. There we go. I'm just going to quickly. Okay, there we go. So today what we're talking about is storytelling with data. Now, I am not necessarily a scholar that works with a lot of data. So I come from the perspective of being very scared of the OIPA data kits when I first saw them, full disclosure. And so when we are doing our workshop today, know that we are trying to demystify it for you, because I think that a lot of people in the past kind of thought about the CPR self-study as a bit of a test about whether or not you are reading the OIPA data correctly. And that's not how you should think about it. And it is not what the point is. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. However, we do have a full agenda. We have guest speakers. You really won't hear a ton from me today. But before we begin, let's introduce our Vice Provost Academic team. So my name is Samantha Cotrera. I work in the Office of the Vice Provost Academic as the Program Development and Curriculum Innovation Specialist, which means that I help programs with these types of CPR self-study questions, but also programs that are looking to innovate or revise or modify their curriculum or new programs and trying to think about their learning outcomes and how they can think about them throughout the life of the program. Now, there are two people that are much more central to the CPR UCAP process, and that is Jennifer Bethune. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see you here. Thanks for coming. I'm Jennifer Bethune. I may have corresponded with many of you already. I'm the Director of Academic Programs and Policy Interim. My Emily Rush is also in this position on parental leave, but you will be hearing from her too as well when she comes back from parental leave as we move into the next stage of your development of your self-studies. So yeah, as Samantha said, we are here to talk about process especially, and to help you make the connections that need to be made to get this to make this a productive experience for you and your program.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Nina, that you all have heard from Nina. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nina Unantana, and I'm the Quality Assurance Coordinator. And if you have any questions, you can always email me or send any queries to UCAP, YorkU@yorku.ca, and we will try to answer your questions as early as possible.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to move to our PowerPoint. Now, we're going to start today with reminders, and we have quite a few reminders. So please get your pens out, your virtual pens or your real pens, so that you can take note of these things, because these reminders are very important as we are moving closer to deadlines, which seem weird, but it's true if you haven't started. Okay, our today's agenda, we're going to start with reminders. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about using the data in the self-study, but then the majority of the focus of our time will be our guest speakers, in particular, our OIPA colleagues. Mark and Iris, if you want to wave. There we go, or salute. And then we're going to go over a few sample questions, and then we have a guest speaker. Emma, if you want to wave. There we go. And then we're going to do a Q&A that will be recorded, and then we will stop the recording. And if you have other questions that you want to ask that you don't want on YouTube, essentially, then you can ask them there. But let's move to reminders, because there are quite a few as we get into the, like I said, the end. Okay, there's 7 reminders I want to talk about. We're going to go through them one by one. Well, actually, that's a lie. We're going to go through the first 2 together. So you need to start making decisions, if you haven't already, about whether or not you want an in-person or a virtual site visit. Do you want it in the fall or the winter? You should have been, you probably were already asked this by Nina and Jennifer. And so now you need to ensure that they have your answer. By June the 1st, we also need your reviewer list. And so maybe you thought, oh, I can answer these questions by June the 1st. No, let us know sooner rather than later, because you don't contact reviewers. So if you're like, oh, well, we were going to contact these people and then see what they wanted to do, and then no, that's not for you to do. We contact reviewers. By we, I mean Nina and Jennifer and Emily. We contact the reviewers. You just give us a list. And so you should be able to share with the UCAP email address if you want it in person or remote, and if you want it in the fall or the winter. And that list of reviewers needs to come to us by June the 1st. Make sure that the list of reviewers are arm's length and that you're not contacting reviewers. So what does arm's length mean? On the UCAP website, if you scroll down, you will see that it says templates and guidelines. And it says external reviewer nomination guidelines and form. And here is where you will find the nomination. I should go this way. Nope, you don't even get to see my arm. And you get to see the nomination form for the cyclical reviewers. And you also will see what we've pulled out, what arm's length means. So take a look at that, make sure that is ready for you, but send us your preferences sooner rather than later. And this is why it's important, because the fall and winter site visits have different due dates for the self-study. The document that you're creating have different deadlines depending on if you want a fall or a winter site visit. So if you want a fall site visit, then the due date is no later than July 15th. If you want a winter site visit, the deadline is no later than October 15th. Now, you might think like, oh, whatever, we'll do winter, October, great, gives us another couple months. I just want to flag that that's not always a good idea, as you might know when you've given your students extensions on assignments and they still wait till the last minute to do it. So that brings us to my next reminder. Let us read sections of your self-study sooner rather than later. Let us give you feedback sooner rather than later. The earlier your submission, both the draft form, but also the final product, the more we can give you productive feedback. So if you just submit it on October 15th, then the feedback that you're going to get are things that are going to be like, that have to be done right away, that are going to be a lot more time sensitive, that there's going to be much more of an urgency and maybe kind of granular thinking because it has now been saved to the last minute. But if you start sending us questions like now, just an answer, then we can kind of say things like, oh, you know what? You're writing too much here, which is feedback I have given people. You're writing too much here. Like, don't focus your energy here. Or things like, this is a really good way that you framed this piece. However, you're missing kind of these elements. Can you reference these at all? And then you can add that in. So the more we get submissions, even if it's just that answer, even if it's just draft, the more productive you can be throughout. And that's why actually that earlier deadline, the July 15th deadline, is actually better for you because it gives a much more of leeway for us to provide feedback. Now, of course, that July 15th deadline, if you want a fall site visit, there's still going to be like perhaps an urgency or time sensitive nature when we're providing you feedback after then, but leading up to then, we have a wealth of time to support you with that. In particular, I can't speak for Jennifer and Emily, although I feel like they probably would agree around this. I personally cannot provide comprehensive feedback after August the 20th because I have to move to the next rota. So if you're sending me answers all the way up till August the 20th, that's great. I can provide you with a lot of detailed feedback. But if I get something on like September the 10th, if I get a whole draft, like, oh, can you look at this and give us feedback? Well, our launch meeting is like next week. I just won't have the time. So make sure you take advantage of the fact that we are here and we have a lot of time right now to be able to support you. We don't need to see the whole thing. We can look at one answer. Don't worry about the writing. That's what we're here for. So know that all of those decisions, in person, virtual, fall, winter, all have these other kind of ideas, and that we're here to support you on that. Just come and ask us questions. We also have a ton of support on our website, which I hope you've been taking advantage of. That UCAP website, that same place that you can see the arm's length, we also have a ton of support. That's where you can find these videos and a lot of other links. So I'm going to move over to that website right now, and I'm going to just remind you what is there. So this is the UCAP website. If you take a look here, the cyclical program review, templates and guidelines, that's where you're going to find that arm's length and the nomination. We want to go here to CPR support. That will take you to a different page. And we have our launch meeting. And then these are the titles of like all 4 of the workshops. If you take a look here, at the curriculum and program learning outcomes, we will take you to the website where we created for you to help. We also provided a reading for the retreats. We have resources and tips on writing retreats. We have our links to our teaching commons, colleagues. And then today's workshop, we have a ton of help. The OIPA website, the ISR website, alternatives, focus group discussion forums, information about reimbursement. We also have information about the reimbursement for York Catering here as well. So make sure you take a look at this website and always kind of keep abreast of what this website looks like, because if somebody asks me a question and I don't have an immediate answer, if there is a website that can help, I will put that on there. So make sure you're taking advantage of the resources that we're creating for you. And at the end of this kind of rota, we will be asking for feedback, and you can let us know. I'm just going to go through these really quickly, and you can let us know if there is a better or different way we can provide you with that feedback. So anyway, the other support that we have coming up. So on Friday, I'm going to run a small workshop. It's going to be just 45 minutes because I get to spend the afternoon at Glendon with Glendon colleagues, which I'm really excited about. We're going to do a mini workshop that will be recorded on focus groups and surveys with students. In March and July, OIPA is going to have some time to have one-on-one meetings with them in data clinics. I'll come back to that in a second. In June, we're going to have our final workshop on putting the document together. I know there's some people that are very, very excited about that. We're also going to do some mini videos on specific things on the document formatting, on how to fill out certain sections, which is really a repetition of a lot of things that we've talked about in these workshops, but in a micro form. And you can let us know if there's anything else that you might want to see in a video form. Now, OIPA is going to do a series or provide a series of opportunities for you to have one-on-one meetings with them. And they wanted to know if in person or remote is better for you, which day of the week is better for you. So we created a little poll. It's in the chat. I will put that back out in a couple other points. If you want to fill that out, you're not booking a meeting then, but it will just help Iris in particular narrow down when she makes those appointment slots available for you. Okay. Oh, speaking of support, so we created today's workshop and the mini workshop on Friday with the normal timetable that we had about getting student data, things like that. Now, we know right now because of the strike, it's a different kind of situation than we had planned. So we are going to run today's workshop without any contingencies related to the strike. The same thing with Fridays. ISR, who provides the student data for some of the programs, will be in touch regarding whether or not your survey looks a little different or the timeline looks a little different. And then our office will be in touch if there's any other contingencies. But we are moving ahead in kind of a normal fashion, despite recognizing that it is kind of an abnormal time right now for York. But in the spirit of moving this process forward, which doesn't really stop at the program level, that's what we're going to do. So if you are interested in collecting your own student data, but know that maybe right now is not the right time, you want to wait until you understand what is happening with the strike, or we know where the strike is landing, that's totally fine. That's why the workshop on Friday will be recorded for your own convenience to look at that. And one of the final things that we want to talk about is make sure you get in touch with the library if you haven't already. So as you probably know, because I know you spend a lot of time looking at the template, in section 7, we ask about your program's relationship with different supports and services. So I've made one, like I've hidden a couple questions for today, but for the library in particular, the library conducts a report for you. It's a survey and a report for you. But you need to get in touch with them to do this and to write that letter. And actually, the sooner you get involved with them, the more space, again, there is to have a conversation if you and your program need something different from the library. Because we specifically ask, how has the library been included in the review of the self-study? So get in touch with them early if you haven't already. All right. Those were all of my reminders. I know I've missed a couple, but we're going to get to a lot of them. I mean, I know I've probably missed a couple, but we're going to get to some of them in that final document. Things like don't be deleting questions if it's not relevant to you. Put an NA. Make sure you put like a table of contents with your CV, all those types of things like that we are making a list of right now to make sure that you remember when you're putting your document together. Will be covered in the next one, but know that we are thinking about all those things, and you can always ask us questions if you are a couple steps ahead. All right, so let's move to the focus of today's workshop, which is using data to tell a story. Now, again, this is something that I covered in the very first workshop, that the cyclical program review self-study is a snapshot of where you are now and a view of where you want to go in the future. And I think that that's a really important reminder when you start working with data, especially if you're not used to working with numerical quantitative data. This is not a test to see if you can read that data correctly. It's an opportunity to explore the big picture of your programs and to get elements on track to ensure you're staying on track. And the numbers can really help you see different views of that. The CPR self-study should be thought of as collaborative and analytical and evidence-based, that there's a series of conversations that you have with faculty and staff and students, and then there is data that is both provided and available, and then there is analysis that you do that bring all those things together. And one of the elements of the data that you have is, I'll come back to that, is the data kit. And the data kit, again, I feel like has all these like rumors and ideas around it. The data kit is provided to you by OIPA, the Office of Institutional Planning and Analysis, and provides that kind of overview, analytical, quantitative view of your program that you can then take that provided data and combine it with the conversations and other data that you have to be able to really bring in a greater element of analysis and understanding your program. I said in workshop 1 that you should really think of the self-study document like you're writing an article. And the thesis is our program is good, but of course it can be better, because of course it can be better, right? Everything can be improved. And so the numbers helps provide some of that analytical element of it. Because yes, this is work, right? To be able to look at all of the data that's available. Research is work, analysis is work, writing is work, peer review is work. But if you are looking at all these elements together, then hopefully what you're doing is productively using the findings to be able to identify some recommendations for the future of your program. Now, like I said in workshop 1, you can do this process however the timeline you want. But we know that you really can't start working on a large part of the questions until the OIPA data becomes available. And it became available to you in February. And so now, even though you have already, hopefully fingers crossed, have done a little bit of thinking about this, the OIPA data can provide some other elements for you to think strategically about your program and the ways that it can continuously improve and develop. The numbers aren't there if you are a scholar who isn't used to working with numbers. The numbers aren't there to trip you up. The numbers are there to enhance your story. So remember, if you are using the thesis, our program is good, but of course it can be better. How can the numbers either demonstrate that your program is doing good or that there are elements that need to be improved? How can the numbers help tell that story? So when you are thinking about writing your cyclical self-review, your cyclical program review self-study, understandably, where your focus is can get, I want to say confusing, but that's not really the right word. Like, it is really easy for faculty members, for people who teach in courses, to really like focus on courses and like professors and TAs, because that is probably the closest to your experiences in the program. So if I'm talking about numerical data, then am I talking about things like grades? Am I talking about teaching evaluations? Am I talking about course load? No, I'm actually not talking about any of those things, because we're not actually talking about courses or professors or grades in the self-study. We're also not talking about like the university writ large, and generally we're not talking about extracurriculars. I just want to remind you that our focus is on the program. And so the data that you get from OIPA is based on the program, not on the university, not on an individual professor. It is on that program. And that's how the numbers can really help shape that conversation, because it gives you that bird's eye view into who's coming into the program, how many people are coming into the program, how many people are staying in the program, how many people are graduating from the program, how much funding do students get in the grad program. And within that, there's all the courses, and they are obviously so important. They're the bedrock to so much of the program elements, but the numbers help us keep that big picture on the program, not on the experiences necessarily on one particular course. And so having this type of data, we don't want you to generate it. We provide it for you. I say we, I do nothing. We provide it for you, we in the university, the big we, as a way to help you kind of think through this. But again, we know that that isn't necessarily always the most comfortable or familiar thing. And that's why we also work very closely with our OIPA colleagues in helping to make sure that you can see the data, access the data, you can understand it, you can make sense of it. So for the remainder of what we're going to do today, we're going to ask our OIPA colleagues to speak about the OIPA data, and then we're going to take a look at a couple of questions about how you can use that data to answer those questions. Then we have a guest speaker who has worked on a lot of cyclical program review self-studies, actually, and she is very, very excited to talk about the data. And then we'll move to a Q&A. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Mark Conrad and Iris Ann, who are our clear heroes in the OIPA world, and who are going to be talking to us today about, again, how to access the data, what it looks like, why it's important, etc. So Mark and Iris, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I was pretty chuffed when you said our clear heroes. in the OIPA world, you know, a group of 17. So, but I'll still take it. I'll still take it. And it was very generous of you, and I'm happy to be here. And I know that Iris is as well. My name is Mark Conrad. I've been a member of the OIPA team before OIPA OIRA since 2007. So I've been around York for a while and doing institutional research and analysis stuff that whole time. I'll let Iris chip in with a few comments about herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity today. And my name is Iris Ann. I'm the Acting Director of Institutional Reporting and Analysis. I've been supporting the cyclical program review for many years. It's all started, I think, in 2005 when we did the first 2015, sorry, when we did the initial version of the academic program report. So that's being maintained on the OIPA website. So, I feel it's an honor to contribute to the cyclical program review process, and also leverage the central data to provide a consistent data reports for this process. So the individual program don't have to spend time on data collection, and also the methodology of pulling the data consistent across all CPR programs, undergraduate and graduate.
Thank you. Yes, not all heroes wear capes. Some of them just work on spreadsheets, as Emma, our guest speaker afterwards, will be very excited to share as well. So now I'm going to pass it over to both Mark and Iris, and they will share about the OIPA data kit.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, so we've been doing these sort of presentations, orientations towards the data kit for quite a number of years now. And in the past, there would be multiple, each department would get their own version of it. It would be a slight variation on all the other ones, that presentations that we had given. It began to feel for me a bit like a vaudeville routine. You know, I'd know, oh, this is the point where I, you know, squirt the audience from my fake flower, you know, in my lapel, that kind of thing. We decided to do it differently this time because there are so many departments involved in the that are on the rota this year, and you know, it just seemed to make sense as an ongoing practice to have this presentation set up as a resource that you could reflect back on. The other innovation that we're exploring this year is a slide deck that Iris spent a lot of time putting together that hopefully will help accomplish the two goals of this presentation, and something, again, is something you can refer back to. Our goals are to orient you towards the data kit, what's in it, particularly for those of you who have not dipped your toe into that data kit yet. And then the second part is to really set your mind at ease about what you're supposed to be doing with this data kit. It can be, I'm sure, daunting to some. It can be confusing to others, annoying to a subpopulation as well. And so this slide deck tries to say, okay, well, this is some information that will help you make sense of what's in the data, like what it is. And then here are some of the ways in which you can reflect on the data when you're doing your self-study. So that's what we're going to do. But before I get into the presentation proper, I'm going to move over to an example data kit. Okay, so when we say data kit, this is what we're talking about. For those of you who haven't already landed on the one that you've been given access to, this is the one for humanities. We're just, you know, actually we selected humanities because it has a good selection of programs both at the undergrad and graduate level. You'll come into the team site. It'll be more or less empty. So you click on the files section, and you'll see two folders. One, previous self-study reports, which are there for you to sort of have easy reference to, and then the data kit proper. If you click on the data kit proper, you'll see that it's organized by the programs undergoing their review in this cycle. And if you click, let me select. Okay, so here is science and technology studies at the graduate level. Okay, I click on that, go down a bit further, and you will see that there are a number of elements. Now you're into the meat of the data kit for this particular program at the graduate level. And you will see the naming conventions of these files. Like in this case, it's Appendix H 4.5. So that's Appendix H in the self-report template and also Section 4.5 in the self-report template. That's what this data pertains to, okay? And so we've tried to make it easy for you to burrow down into the data kit and get to the data that's relevant for the specific section that you're thinking about. All right. So I just thought I would give you that kind of a brief overview so that you have something in your head. When I say data kit, you've got this image in your head about what we're talking about. And now what I will do is talk a bit about the various elements of the data kit and what they and you know how you might approach using the data. As I said before, the data in the data kit are organized by the sections that in the self-report template that they are relevant to. So we've got section 3, program curriculum, program structure and learning outcomes. 4 is a section on admissions, 6, resources, and 5, student enrollment, retention, and graduation. And then there are various appendices in the self-report template that relate to each of these sections. So for instance, for section 3, we've got Appendix C and Appendix G, and the data in Appendix C specifically relates to section 3.3 of the program curriculum, program structure, and learning outcomes section, okay? So we've got elements for all of these sections, and hopefully that helps you navigate and find your way to the specific data elements that you are interested in using. There is one overarching element of the data kit that you probably will come back to time and again, okay? And those are the academic program reports, which Iris already mentioned in her opening comments. I've got a picture of a baseball card here with a bunch of stats on it. We kind of think of the academic program reports as a gigantic baseball card or hockey card providing stats for a number of years, typically an 8-year stretch of stats on a variety of topics that have to do with the student life cycle, all the way from applications and admissions to enrollment, retention, and graduation. Okay. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to take that academic program report and just kind of plunk it into the template. At least I don't think that's a requirement, but it is something that you will, I'm sure, repeatedly come back to. So we want to spend a bit of time on that. It's almost like a Swiss Army knife, right? It's just got so many different uses. And I also want to, on this page, just point out again the format of this slide deck. There are 55 slides in this slide deck. You know, I'm not going to go over each and every one, obviously, in detail. It's a resource for you to come back to. For each element in the data kit that is described in this slide deck, you will have a section called Understand the Data, which just tells you what the data is, where it comes from, and then an Insight and Perspective section, which has suggestions for the questions you might ask yourself about the data, the purpose to which, or the work that you might put the data to as you go through the process of doing your self-report. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of the academic program report. This one is, I forget, I think this, it doesn't even matter what program this is for. It may in fact be at a faculty level. But the important thing to note on this and the next few pages is that each section of the report, this is section A, covers off a different part of the sort of the student journey. Okay, so this is admissions data, including the number of applications that have come in for the 2015-16 academic year, all the way through to the 22-23 academic year. This last year, the most recent year, typically is at the time that these data kits are put together, the data is still kind of evolving, okay? So it's not final data, and that's why that asterisk is there. And you may find that you hit upon terminology that you're not familiar with. So for instance, in the application data, you see applications 101, domestic international, and then 105, domestic and international. Well, what does that mean? In the notes section of this PowerPoint deck, when you get it, there are a whole bunch of detailed notes that can help orient you towards what that means. But just quickly, a 101 is an applicant who currently is in an Ontario high school and they're applying into an Ontario university. A 105 is an applicant who's not currently in an Ontario high school. Okay, they might be a college or university student, a mature student. They may be a high school student, but from another province. They might be an out-of-country international student and so forth. So it's basically everybody else. First choice applications, right? That's an interesting one. So a student can apply to more than one program at York University. Typically, the one that they're most invested in, they put up their higher up in their selection of choices via the Ontario University Application Center. And so the first choice is basically the highest choice is, which York program they ranked more highly when they were applying in. The first choice applications are taking a look at the sector as a whole, the Ontario sector as a whole. And they're counting, like if English, for instance, had a first choice applicant, that applicant would have picked them first, maybe another program at U of T, another program at McMaster, and two more at York. But English at York was their first choice. A highest choice application might also be a first choice application, but it could be lower down on the list. If, for instance, they chose U of T first, and then their second choice was at York. That's a second choice application for the system as a whole, but it's a highest choice application for York. And I hope that didn't confuse you, but we've got notes in there in the slide deck that can help orient you towards all of this. Transfers from Ontario colleges and universities, that's kind of self-explanatory. Final GPA, so this is their final high school grades. And this is the percentage in any one year that were above 75% or above 80%. Okay, and then you can see the trends over time. And then once we get past the application stage, that's people, applying to us. Then we have counts that relate to offers, and on a subsequent page, also then who actually shows up here, and that's the registration data. So, some of the detail to help orient you to the academic program report, but also it's important to note that these data tell a story, right? You will see things that, like, for instance, on the application side of things, for these program or for this program or programs that this data pertains to, it was 17-18, right? That was the high year, and then things happened, one of them being COVID after that. And so it's painting a bit of a story for you, and it's your job to kind of take that data and then reflect on it. And that's really when we say, describe and analyze the data. The describe is, trend going up, trend going down, steady as she goes, that kind of thing. The analyze is just basically connecting the dots and saying, oh, well, you know, if I put this in context of what I know from, let's say, the NESI data or the survey data that we collected via ISR or the workshops we had with colleagues within the department, what does this mean for us? That's basically what the analysis stage is all about. I should also point out that these trend lines here on the far right of the diagram are scaled separately for each row, okay? So you'll notice that in each and every row, the green dot is always up at the very top of the row and the red dot is always at the very bottom, regardless of whether that gap is a count of 5 or a count of 500, right? So it helps you interpret the temporal trend within the row, but do not use them to compare amongst rows because the scaling is different on the y-axis. I also want to point out that depending on the section you're looking at, the definition of the year might change. So this is the academic year for admissions. When we get to section B, which is enrollment headcounts, we're basing it off of the fall term or the November 1 official count date data, okay? So is that academic year or fiscal year? It doesn't matter, it's the fall term, okay? And then when we get to FFTE enrollments, and we'll talk about FFTEs later on in the workshop, we switch to a fiscal year. So academic year runs September through to August. Fiscal years run for the university, run May through the end of April, okay? And we do this because these data relate to other data that's also available across campus in various fora, including data that WIPO provides. And we didn't want to start talking at cross purposes to those pre-existing data sets. Rather, when we gathered all this data together for this sort of one-stop shop, gigantic baseball card kind of presentation, we kept the periods of time that the data relate to sort of those standard dates that each of the data has. Going down to section E, we're skipping over section D, right? For this purpose, we'll come back to it later on in the workshop. Section E, retention rates. One thing you should know is that the retention rates that are supplied, for instance, you see in row 1.1% in same program 1 year later, that's 54% of the students who entered in 2015, 37. So 54% of the 37 returned 1 year later, okay, to the same program. 22% came back 1 year later to a different program, and 24% were not here 1 year later, okay? So this is all, each column is a cohort with the size of that cohort in the top, the 37, the next year is 36, the next year is 30, and then the percentages 1 year later and further on, I believe it goes to 2 years later, showing up in the column. So that's how you read that. Degrees awarded. Okay, this is done by calendar year. You'll see in this academic program report, not only in the degrees awarded section, but back in the enrollment section as well, we're mostly talking about major ones, first majors, okay? And we provide the counts on that basis. Here, we've also given you counts for students for whom these programs were their second major, and then minors as well. And if you've got certificate data in here, there's going to be data about certificates as well. Graduation rates, similar to the retention rate data, it's on a cohort basis. So of the 30 full-time heads who, no, actually, Iris, can you correct me if I'm, no, I can see how this tapers off. So it has to be correct. Of the students who came in 2014, we've got 35% graduating from the same program within 6 years, another 35% graduating, but from a different program within 6 years. So again, this is on a cohort basis. Okay, glad I didn't screw that up. So I think that's what I'll stop there with the academic program report description for now. Spent a lot of time on it. Got to jump to a few other things. I think what I'll do next, given the time, is speed ahead to maybe section to this section. Students, enrollment, retention, graduation, and in particular Appendix K, the student self-assessment summary. I'm going to touch on this and then the NESI data, mainly because these data kind of are different than many other parts of the data kit in that they provide the data in the form of either statistical visualizations or they've got p-values and effect sizes and stuff like that. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about that. The student self-assessment survey is a survey that goes out to all new incoming first-year students coming in the fall term into a direct entry program. So it doesn't go out to like law students or Bachelor of Education students. It happens every year before they arrive on campus in about mid-August. If over the last, I think it's since 2014, you've had at least 15 respondents answering this survey, then we provide data to you at the program level in the data kit. If there are less than 15 respondents, then we don't. Okay, then this will just be absent. So that's the threshold. Each of the surveys has its own particular threshold for us reporting out to you on that survey data, and that's noted in these slides. The self-assessment data asks questions that relate to non-cognitive characteristics like motivations for attending university, academic and career goal clarity, academic self-efficacy, grit, self-reliance, and help-seeking behaviors, that kind of stuff. Okay, things that are known based on what's in the literature to impact academic performance. And the report provides, we'll describe all of this to you. You don't just get this graph and the next one I'm going to show you. But this is an example of a statistical visualization, right? It's got, it doesn't show you all of the data points. It's describing it via these box plots. These are notched box plots. Basically, the higher up on the screen, the blue section is, and in particular, the narrow sort of waist within the box plot, the higher whether it's an internal motivation, an external motivation, or a sub-segment of the external motivation, like career and job aspirations or meeting the expectations of others. The higher this blue section is, the more highly rated that was as a motivation being expressed by the students in your program. And here we can see something that rings true of many, probably all, in fact, programs at York. And in fact, it rings true from when other universities do this kind of survey too. High internal motivations, really high external motivations that are about career and job aspirations. So that's something to keep in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, as you can see on this scatter plot here on the left-hand side of the screen, oftentimes those who are ranking internal motivations highly, so the higher the number, the more of a motivation it is, the more important that motivation is to them. They are also ranking career and job motivations highly. So it's not an either or situation. In fact, our best and brightest students are internally motivated, the love of the subject matter and what have you, and they also are very much concerned about their career aspirations. So that's how you read that. I'll just end off with some comments about the NESI data, which is the National Survey of Student Engagement. We run that survey every 3 years. It goes out to first year and fourth year students towards the end of the academic year. Okay, so they've experienced a full year, whereas with the student self-assessment, it goes out to them before they even started their courses. And we provide in the data kits results for your program. Again, if there are 30 responses or more at the program level, we generate the report for you. And we provide data about engagement indicators, academic challenge, campus environment, experience with faculty, and peer learning. And also high impact practices, things like study abroad, learning communities, community-based projects, internships, co-ops, field experience, etc. Okay, so that's the data from the NESI survey that we give you. When you take a look at the report, it'll be structured as you see here. And in this presentation, we just give you a bit of a cheat sheet about how to interpret the findings, okay, in the NESI survey. You'll see these triangles over here. A solid blue triangle means that the difference between the results for your program and the results for the comparison group, which I believe is the university as a whole, is significantly different. Okay, there's a significant difference. And it has an effect size that is 0.3 in magnitude. Effect size ranges between 0 and 1. And really anything, as you can see over here, anything that's basically greater than about 0.2 can be thought of as being in the range of a medium effect size. Anything over 0.5, now you're getting solidly kind of into the moderate effect size range, and then 0.8 is a large effect size. Okay, so these triangles just try and condense that down into something that's easy to visualize and easy to interpret. The asterisks are very common. I'm sure a lot of you have seen them. Basically, if you don't have the asterisks and if you don't have a triangle, it means that the difference was not significant between the results for the program and the results for the comparison group. These data are the NESI data, the self-assessment data, give you a sense of who your students are coming in to the program and what they're telling us via the surveys about their experiences here by the end of their 4th year or by the end of their 1st year. And again, there's some tips, just some very general tips in this slide deck that should help you sort of find your way through the data and connect it to the other things that you've been thinking about or hearing, again, either via the student surveys that ISR does or the workshops that you've run with your faculties. I think I've burned through my time and maybe a couple more minutes besides. It's a really kind of breezy overview. Certainly didn't cover off everything that I intended to cover off in these 25 minutes. But again, there's the clinics that will be provided in March through, March through June. And we'd be happy to work through any questions you might have. And the key thing here is that the data should not be a mystery to you, and it's not, as Samantha said, it's not a test. It's here for you to reflect upon and to help build out the story that you're telling in your self-report. I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Mark. If that was a vaudeville show, I'll be using the proverbial cane to pull you off, but you will.
Okay.
What we're going to do now is go through just a couple of questions that reference the OIPA data, and Mark will come back and actually talk about one of those. And then following that, we are going to hear from Emma Posca, who's worked with the OIPA data on a couple different self-studies as a key admin person. And so thank you so much for that introduction, because I think it will make so much more sense as we move through these examples. Just a reminder that if you do have questions, we're going to take them at the end. I'll record them, and then if you wanted to ask a question that you don't want recorded, like it will be on YouTube, then I'll stop the recording and you can ask questions then. Okay, so we wanted to show you how you would take what you find in the data kit and put that in your document. And I chose the hardest one to show you. I'm kidding. I actually think I chosen one of the easiest, but one that still gets people kind of tripped up because, I mean, whatever, it's all very confusing. So these are questions from the undergrad program report, excuse me, the undergrad template. What we have tried to do with the template is we try to be really clear about where, like when you're using the OIPA data. So for example, we say right at the beginning of this section, like you'll need the academic program report, which is part of the data kit to complete this section. We will also say like which elements that are the best ones for answering this question, such as like use section A in the academic program report to answer this question, specifically here, applications, registrations, and applicant GPA. However, we also sometimes will ask you to take the information and include it as an appendices. Now, you might be like, I'm just copy and pasting the information that you've provided as an appendices. That seems redundant, but that is actually exactly what we're asking you to do. Look, we know that there are a million ways for this to be actually clearer, but we want to ensure that all of the information is in one document for the external reviewers, but also URLs change, right? Data online is not as stable as many imagine it to be. So even though this isn't online data, I'm thinking about the NESI data here. Yes, we want you to cut and paste that table or those tables right from the OIPA data kit into this document. And we have tried to make that as clear for you as possible. However, there's also times where we will say things like, provide this information and add a little bit to it. So for Appendix C, for example, we said the information is in the OIPA data kit, but we want you to identify if the course is required or optional. So OIPA has actually given you this information already. You don't need to go and look for it separately. However, this information here is the information we want you to be able to identify. We want you to fill that out. And so we identify up above if, for example, you if you want to take that information that OIPA has provided and put it in a spreadsheet or put it here or manipulate it in other places, we provided you with an Excel spreadsheet for you to do that and then copy and paste it here. But that whenever we provide you with a table like this that references the OIPA data, you have to take it one additional step. Another example is it's like a faculty list, and then you have to provide the fields that they're in or their expertise. It's the same type of thing. When we've provided you with tables, it's because we're trying to demonstrate to you that you need to take, I know, Karen. Copy and pasting Excel files is bizarre and does not, well, sometimes it works. We will talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about ways to copy and paste it in our final workshop, because you can copy and paste information as an image and things like that. I know. It's not me. Don't shoot the messenger or anyone involved in this process, because we know it's not the cleanest, but it is what we're doing, and we will talk about some tips and tricks in the last workshop about it. But when we're asking you to do that, that's literally what we're asking you to do. And the course data, I know that's come up a lot because people are getting a jump on it. Oh, okay, thanks. I'm just looking at the chat. um I look at the course data because a lot of people have gotten the jump and tried to do that one at first, and that's a really great one because you're just identifying required or optional. But the course data can provide you actually with a lot of other details, and this is where I want to go over to Jennifer, who wants to talk a little bit about the course enrollment data, and then she has another example for you. I'll take a look at the chat. That violence is not condoned in this process. We know it's awkward, but please, we don't have another way to do it right now that achieves the overall goals that we want. We're working on it. We're working in 1996 time.
Now I'm worried about violence, but hopefully we
No
won't end up with
violence. This
that.
is a non-violence free workshop. and
Okay.
process.
So I'm going to talk about two examples. Here, I'm just trying to arrange all my little windows. So like some of you, I'm fairly new to York. So when I got here, you know, this is my first time sort of coming face to face with some of this data. And so I can share with you sort of from a beginner's point of view what it is like and how what I learned, and a few sort of key examples that that I found really helpful as I learned, coming face to face with an academic program report for the first time. But first, what I'm going to talk about is a question that I think, it really speaks to what Samantha was talking about. It relates to the course enrollment. So Samantha was talking about at the start how this is really a process that's not at the course level. It's a cyclical program review. So the aim of this is to look at the program, and yet we're providing you with fairly granular data at a course level, how many students are enrolled in each course and who's teaching them and how many sections are offered and so on. The reason we're giving you that data and asking you to describe and analyze trends related to course enrollment is this is a prompt to think about your courses as the building blocks of a program, to think about these courses as from the perspective of the program. So when we're looking at these tables, which I'll show you the appendix in the next slide, but some of the things that looking at individual course enrollment data can help us think about is the program structure. So are the requirements and the sets, when I'm using sets, I'm talking about, choose from the set, choose from this set, choose 6 credits from this set, choose 9 credits from this set, those kinds of sets. Are those set up in a way that's leading to issues with low enrollment or overfull courses and so on? So looking at the course enrollment data can give you clues into how to investigate your program structure in such a way. Because progression, overfull courses can lead to frustration and difficulty progressing if students can't get the courses that they want to, or the courses that they need to progress and to graduate in time, which can in turn lead to retention issues if students give up. They can point to questions around resource allocation. So is the balance of offerings across year levels correct? Or do we have tons of really overfull courses in second year and lots of underfull courses in fourth year? And are there some things that could happen, some things around the kinds of choices that students have to sort of even out that balance? They can also point to opportunities for cross-departmental or cross-faculty synergies. So if courses could be cross-listed, or if we could open up sets to offer programs from other departments or other faculties, if we have some problems with overfull courses and students not being able to get what they need. And it can also relate to changes in the discipline and students' interests and things that students' motivations for enrolling in a program. So even though we're looking at very sort of granular course level information, the goal here is to look at what the course can tell us about the program as a whole. And so these can be considered alongside the calendar copy and the course requirements. So we can go into the curriculum management system and really do little sort of deep dives and see where the dependencies for certain courses are. So a course may just be on a list of 20 in your program, but it might be required for another program. The academic program report can show the information on retention and how long students are taking to graduate, and that can be compared against things like bottlenecks at a certain year level. And we can also look at the NESI and the student survey data that you might get from ISR, or conversations that you're having with students and advisors and your colleagues, that anecdotal data even about frustrations that students are experiencing in terms of bottlenecks and not being able to get the credits they're looking for. So I pulled a few examples here to show you how I looked at this. So this is the example that is in the resource slide deck that Iris and Mark prepared. And I just want to point out a few things here. So you'll see that in rows 2 and 3, we have it's a year-long course, and we're in section A. We have 2 section A's, so that's a clue that this course is being co-taught. So this is not 2 separate sections, this is one. So that's something to look at here when you're looking through your through your course data. So I pulled out a couple examples here. They don't have, I wanted to show further on down the list, so they don't have the section headings. But if I were maybe looking through this list, I might come across, oh, here's some that are under full. And so I might think, oh, so what, where is this course? What is the role of this course in the program? Is this something I could offer every second year, or are they prerequisites too difficult, making it so that it's hard for students to be able to get into this or take this course, even though they might really like to? And so I might go to the curriculum management system and type in the course here, and then find out where this course is. So it turns out that this is a required course for mathematical biology. So you would probably already know that if that was your program, but these are the kinds of things that you can do to see where these courses lie in the list of course requirements, and how you might be able to, or what you might learn about your program requirements by looking at the enrollment data for individual courses. So now I have another example, and this one I did a little work on. I added a column here. So this on this one I just added a basic column to figure out the fill rate for all of the courses in this in the program. And then I sorted it based on this column, and saw that there's so many courses here that are very, very, very full. And so that could point to or confirm some information that you're already hearing from your students, that they may be having a hard time getting into the courses that they want to take. And remember that these numbers are from November. So in September, these courses were probably even more full than this. And so I'm seeing that these ones, and I could take a look. So is there something that we could do with our course sets, with the choices that we're providing the students, or adding more sections, if that's possible, to free up some availability in these, especially when we could look at the bottom of the list and say, oh, are there some courses in the bottom of the list that aren't as full? Can we look at the curriculum map? Can we look at these courses? Can we figure out a way to try to even out the demand for the courses in this particular area, so that we're not frustrating students and possibly leading to some issues with slowing down their time to completion, or causing them frustration to maybe switch out of the program or leave altogether. Hopefully not. So this does not come with the data. I just did this quickly on my own, something that you can do, and you can either leave it or not leave it in the in the version that you ultimately cut and paste into the self-study report. So this is sort of a working version for me. Okay, so the next question that I wanted to talk about was one that really threw me for a loop. Is that the saying? Is it? Okay. When I first started looking at the academic program report, and it is the graduation and the degrees awarded. So I was looking at a report like this, and the first thing that stood out to me is, oh wow, they put in the wrong years here, because these are not the years for the rest of the academic program report. No, I did not make a mistake here. This is because we are looking at cohorts of students and we're looking at their graduation rate within 4 years. So the this 2015 students here, we have to look at them 4 years later, not we don't have any data on them. For the 2021 students, we don't have any data on them yet. They're off the charts. So it does line up here. These are the students that that we're looking at. So the next thing I looked at was we have 428 people enrolled in this major, and it looks like we gave out, oh no, it has, sorry, 559. Okay, this program had 559 new year one full-time students in 2017. And 4 years later, they gave out 428 degrees. And yet they said that there's only a 25% graduation rate. So 25% of 550 is nowhere near 428. So I was really confused by these numbers. But what I learned and what I want to share with you is that these are really very different numbers. This is looking at, the section F is looking at every degree that was awarded with this major. So that includes people that transferred into the program, that includes people that took a long time to get here, that includes people who left and then restarted again, everyone who got this degree. For this one, we're tracking only this group of students who came in as new full-time year one heads, not part-time students, not people who joined after being out of school for a bunch of years. These are just this cohort. And of this group, 25% graduated in the first 4 years. And then by 5 years, we have close to 50%. So these are not tracking the same groups of people at all. So even though they seem like they are very related, kind of, you know, degrees awarded and graduation, they seem to kind of go together. It seems like it should be the same number. We're actually looking at two different pieces of data. And so I wanted to pull that up for you because this can really give us a sense, this top one can, even though we don't get a sense of what's happening to the students who are in this cohort, it does give a sense of what's happening to the students that are coming into this program, who may be transferring into the program. So maybe this is a program that's doing a great job of welcoming in students who have transferred from another program, for example. And you can go back to say, look at the college transfers, for example. There are a lot of college transfers that are coming in who are really, and this program's doing a good job of graduating people transferring from college or from another program. So there you can look at things like the retention rate, when are the students in this program leaving, and also who are the students coming into this program other than the new students, to help make sense of those two figures. And now I'll turn it over to, I think, Emma.
No, not Emma yet. I think
not
thank
Emma
you
yet.
so
No.
much. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. Those were some really useful examples. And I think it also really demonstrates, like, while it can seem intimidating once you get in and start kind of working with it, how much information that you can get that really illuminates elements of your program, like uniquenesses of your program, right? Like, you're really good at welcoming students in from other programs or college. We're going to go back to Mark and Iris, who are going to do a couple other questions to show you. I know there was some conversation in the chat about the cutting and pasting. We will definitely cover that in the next workshop, so please don't worry about that. But right now, Mark/Iris, I'm not sure who's going to talk first.
Sure, I'll go first, I think. And go back to the data kit. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to speak about data in the data kit that you would use for something like question 5.4 in the template, okay? In the undergraduate template. And it asks you in section 5.4 to describe and analyze trends related to program enrollment, okay? And it says, do that in relation or use data from section B and section C in the academic program report. Okay, and you might also throw section D in there for good measure if you want to. And so I thought I would just walk through a bit of the detail in the headcount data, which is section B, And then for those of you who are not familiar with fiscal full-time equivalents, FFTEs, which is what is provided in section C and section D, thought I'd go over that, okay? Because it's all useful information to have, particularly for programs that do a lot of service teaching. It's nice to see the data in section D, which is responsible FFDs compared against section C, which provides home FFDs, and I'll explain the differences between those two things. But first, November 1 head counts. Okay, these are counts of students. One student, one head count in the fall term, and you'll see right off the bat here. I've got an example. Row 1.0, major one total, okay? And so everything in section from 1.0 all the way down to near the bottom where it says 1.7.20 degree equals IBA, that all has to do with first majors in the program, okay? So the vast majority detail is for those students. You will see in row 1.0, the overall head count. And then going down from that, it's just split out in different ways, and in some cases, narrowing in on a specific subset. So for instance, 1.1.1 entry type new. So these are students who have shown up in your program as a new student and not a transfer like within the university. If they had to actually apply in and get accepted in as a new student and are arriving in that fall term as a new student, they show up as new. Otherwise, they would be a continuing student or potentially a degree or faculty transfer, or maybe they left for a few years and came back and they're a reactivated student. So those show up on those other lines. And then section 1.2.1 and 1.2.2 provide the full-time, part-time split of those November 1 full-time heads, okay? And then you've got domestic, which is either a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, versus students who are here on a student visa or some other kind of visa, or their status at the time of the count date data was frozen. If their status was unknown, they are counted in line 1.3.2. The year level, or the study level, or the session level, depending on which flavor of exactly the same thing we're talking about, is provided in 1.4.1 through to 1.4.4. And then you've got the split 90 credit versus honors versus specialized honors, honors double major, and so forth. And then sections 1.6.1 through 1.6.4 are giving you counts of transfer students. So it's focusing in not on the whole group and splitting the whole group up, but just focusing in on those students who are coming in as transfer students and letting you know, well, what kind of transfer student? Are they coming from a college, a university, or so forth? And then there's some degree information, the BA and the IBA for this particular program. And then we briefly mentioned major twos. So these are second majors in that program, and any minors you have. Okay. And then if there are students who are concurrently taking this program with the Bachelor of Ed, we mentioned that as well. So that's pretty basic, right? Like there's a lot of detail there, but the concept is simple. Head counts in the fall term. Then we get into this notion of FFTEs. And an FFTE, as I briefly mentioned before, stands for fiscal full-time equivalent. You can really measure it over any length of time. These numbers are given over the course of a fiscal year, which is the typical way we deal with fiscal full-time equivalents. And so what is it? Well, for most undergraduate programs, all but engineering programs, for degrees, that is, the nominal full course load for a year is 30 credits, right? Racking up to 90 for a 90 credit degree and 120 for an honors degree. So basically what you do is you say, okay, well, how many credits are being taken by your majors, right? And you can do this at the level of an individual student. You can do it as all your majors or an entire faculty or what have you. How many credits have they been enrolled in? Divide that by 30. That's the fiscal full-time equivalent for the year, okay? And when we're talking about home, so basically it's combining the effect of the number of students you have and the effect of how intense their course load is. And it brings those two concepts together, and it basically normalizes FFT, normalizes headcounts by course loading. Home FFTEs. That basically means, if students find their home in your unit or your faculty by virtue of the major that they are in, and it goes by first major, then that's a home FTE, and all of the courses they're taking, regardless of which faculty or which program, or rather which unit is teaching those courses, count towards the FFTEs expressed as home FTEs. So you might have, like, let's say humanities, right? They've got students, they're humanities students, so they kind of belong to them. Humanities is their home program, but they're taking an anthropology, a sociology, I don't know, a philosophy course here and there. Those are other units. Maybe they're doing a Nat Sci over in Faculty of Science. Doesn't matter. All of those FFDs aggregate to the home unit or the home faculty. Okay. When you go to the responsible side, and you can see section 3 of, sorry, section D, and then lines 3.0 through to 3.3. Now we're talking about responsible FFTEs. This kind of flips it around. All of the credits divided by 30 that are produced by students taking courses offered by the unit or the faculty, depending on what level we're talking about, count towards the responsible FFTE count, regardless of what home those students have. So if you've got Lassonde or science students coming across and taking a humanities course, they count towards your responsible FFTE, okay? And so again, obviously for programs, for departments that do a lot of service teaching, this is an important thing to keep in mind in it, and to juxtapose against what's going on with your major per se, okay? So those are questions that we typically get time and again when people are exploring this data. And I just thought I'd take these last 7 minutes or so to chat about that. Over to you, Iris.
Yes. Let me just share screen. I would like to take some time just to talk about the questions we get in terms of why they don't have course data, or the Appendix O, the tabulation of the teaching resource by different year level. So the university's course is actually assigned based on the responsible units. So there's no natural alignments in terms of the responsible unit and the program. So sometimes it's aligned pretty well. So we will actually do a 1-to-1 match, and the course is basically 100% mapped to this responsible unit. But a lot of time, based on the structure and how teaching resource housed within a particular faculty, they actually have a major components for the responsible unit, and then they assign teaching resource for all the smaller programs within those faculty. So the example here I'm giving is the environmental EUC. And you will see that there are 2 responsible units. So, and there are multiple programs.
You haven't shared yet.
Oh,
can you share the screen?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I thought I already shared. So basically, there are just two major responsible units and the multiple programs underneath that. And what we provide is the information at the responsible unit level, and the program will need to go through the set of the courses provided by those responsible units, and then pick up the course that's aligned with your own curriculum requirements, and then fill those the course enrollment. Also, there are connections between the different reports in the in the data kit items. So for example, Appendix G, the course enrollment data, the section data are provided at the like the instructor level. So for example, this course are showing up twice because they are co-cored by one by QP member as well as full-time. So this is actually related to the faculty list, because in the faculty list, we will provide the whole faculty, full-time faculty list based on the full-time faculty file that's mapped to that home department. But we will also provide, based on the course enrollment information for the part-time faculty member that teach that year's course. But for that information, we are not able to actually provide information like areas of the specialization or rank. So you will have to provide your own, you will have to fill this part of the information. For the Appendix O tabulation of instructor type, if the information is provided at the responsible unit, you will have to like compile your own list for the program specific course list, and then count the sections yourself based on whether the section is taught by a full-time member or a contract instructor. If there's a natural alignment of the responsible unit and the program, then this table is provided directly. I also want to spend a little bit time just talking about one kind of a confusing items on the graduate side. So this is an example of the financial support for graduate students, like for a particular graduate program. So the question we get previously is, I get feedback that, oh, we don't actually have funding for these students. So why we have so many, like for example like awards or TA data here. This is because the way that we collect data is it's based on the student ID in the system, and we go into different system to extract all the data that's related to this master student or PhD student. So it is not necessarily funded or serviced directly through your program or department. So student might go out to get like, for example, TA or RA or GA jobs on their own. This is actually a very good example to see that how students is kind of utilize their knowledge and connect with the field and applying their knowledge at the same time, which means they are engaging more with the university, like in different aspects, because the data are provided not only for the like non-employment related, like for like financial support in terms of funding source from external scholarship, York fellowship and the internal scholar. We also provide the employment related financial support. So there are data. So if you think there's some that you cannot reconcile the information with as you understand how the students are getting their funding, you probably want to validate the information through all the data tables. It's provided by category, by students' degree type in terms of the individual like for example, award details and how they are being distributed to the students. I think this is also a showcase, like a student's achievement, because for the graduate student survey, it really connected like students research activity and like the interaction with the professor and with the staff member with the faculty. So this is actually the quantitative side of the information as how the transactions going at the back in terms of their interaction with the university, but you can actually definitely pick up the individual, for example, the student ID. You can see, oh, these particular students, they're so involved with the university, and maybe we can just collect individual feedback from the students to see what they are thinking, if there anything that experience that they can relate to this particular cyclical program review. Because a lot of time it's really based on faculty member and like the students who they have connection with. But I think using the student financial support is really a trace of the students who have the best interaction with the university and with the program. So some key of the metrics is here that you will understand. Oh, the current year's number are actually not finalized. So when you copy paste the data, just copy the completed 8 years of data into the self-study template. And you will see the number of unique students actually funded. So, so this information, you can also make adjustment if you do spot there's error in the system, that you can actually make adjustment to this data. So I think these are a few reports, and also the relationships between the reports I want to spend a little bit more time on. Yeah. Okay. Going back to Samantha.
Great, thank you. You can take your screen share down now. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, and trust me, it was all extraordinarily useful. And so what I hope that you do is go back to these videos as you're working through the questions, so that the information that we provided align with the questions that you have immediately as you're working through these. I see that there were questions in the chat too. Just a reminder, we'll take some questions at the end, but I really encourage you to use the email that we set up this year just for these types of questions. It's cprdata@yorku.ca. It goes to our office. It goes to the OIPA office. We'll make sure you get a question. And again, Iris has set up these really useful times that you can come and have one-on-one meetings with her to talk about your data specifically, but she wants to make sure that she's offering them at the best times for you. So please go and fill out that survey, because I see that there's 50 people in today's, well, currently still here, and 50 people have not answered that. So please just go, let us know the best times, and then she'll be able to send out information about how you can book a meeting with her. So again, I know that this has been a lot of information, especially if you're not used to using this type of data, but it is very exciting and it can open up like a whole world of ways to think about your program. And the excitement of using this data comes with using this data. And with that notion of excitement, I want to introduce Emma Posca, who's a PhD candidate, actually, soon to be a PhD. She's a scholar here at York University. She's also been a longtime administrator who has been able to work with multiple programs on their CPR self-studies. And she has been so enthusiastic about working on the writing CPR from last year, because that's the program that she works in right now, that I thought it'd be really great to bring her to today's meeting to talk about her experience with the CPR and her enthusiasm in particular about using the data, but also like formatting the documents and stuff. I'm sure we're going to hear from her again. So thank you so much for coming today, Emma. Would you like to introduce yourself and then tell us all the learnings that you have had with the CPR data?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Samantha, for having me here. You're not lying. I am truly excited to be here. As you said, PhD student and longtime administrator and
PhD
working with this
candidate.
data. PhD candidate,
Right.
Longtime administrator for about 20 years. And I will say this, I want to begin, anyone who knows me and anyone who's worked with me is specifically on CPR and CPR data. I will tell you, this data is your friend. Do not be afraid. Embrace it. Why? Because it tells you the story of your program. It is an effective way to communicate the story of your program. And it also tells you the historical context of the program for at least 7 years, if not more. And for me, it was so important coming into writing because I was part of writing a long time ago, and then coming back, and I got to see how the data evolved, and I got to see what I missed in between. And it told me that story. It told me the ebbs and flows of the program. It gave me the insights of what occurred or what didn't occur. And it told me what brought us here today. It also told me what was already implemented, positive or negative changes. And it gave me the ability to understand what could or couldn't be changed or implemented going forward. So it's really important that you embrace it. I have to tell you, I had a good time with this because I'll tell you, over 20 years, I'm working with the data. I worked with various programs. So social work, philosophy, anthropology, political science, English a while back. And I've seen the data evolve. I've seen the data become so informative, and I've seen it become a way for us to work with our academic leads. So I've done this and worked on this data with various hats. So as a GPA, a UPA, admin coordinator, an administrative floater. So it gave me the ability to coordinate with academic leads working on this project. It made me realize, okay, so my portion is the data to interpret that for the leads who are working on the written portion. And over 20 years, I've seen the data become more intricate, more defined. And with writing specifically, what I saw is that it told me the story of enrollment, retention, registration over the years. For our particular program, and I'm sure for most of them, it will tell you the impact of COVID on your program. It will tell you resources because writing has specific resources. For example, our Keystone and Capstone courses that changed, and also the impact of the Writing Center. For us specifically in writing, it told me the story of our program structure, program changes, offerings, and how this impacted various pockets of students. So then the written story could be told. For me, what I looked at when I was working with the academic leads, I looked at what context this could provide, because each section will have, and you'll see it. And I hope, yes, I can talk about the actual putting together of the document as well, but you'll see it. It's going to ask you to tell it. There will be a historical context, what has or hasn't changed with program structures, courses that are no longer offered. And that leads to the story of enrollment, registration, retention. Retention is really important because you're going to see those numbers go up and down, especially when we look at admissions. We looked at specifically in writing the social and employment and or environmental factors that impacted our students. And it told us the data, told us that story. And then the student survey, which is further data, it told us about our completion, success stories, and what success led to that support within our program. One of the things that I will tell you, what got me really excited, is because this data is clean, and you can follow it along. I guarantee you, I'm happy to provide support. And the biggest thing is Iris and the team, reach out to them. That email is the best because they will help you if there's something missing, you require clarification. And I'm going to show you 2 examples, if I may, that came out of our data that I was helping interpret to be able to do the written portion, if that's okay. I think I can screen share, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yep, no problem.
Perfect. So this is, I hope you can see my screen. Can you see it? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So this is what we looked at when we looked at ENPR and PRWR numbers. And this is what I mean by it being clean. It showed numbers that were high, numbers that dropped. We looked at student head counts, and we looked at, for example, like I said, what impacted the students, right? And what impacted them was social factors such as COVID. And then we kept going and we looked at, for example, students that were awarded degrees and what went up or down and why. Okay, so this is why I think this data is fantastic. Because like I said, clean, it's evolved, and it's very intricate, but it's also fun. It's also fun to work with. So thank you and enjoy yourselves. And please reach out to me if you need help. I'm happy to help.
Enjoy yourselves. That is the takeaway for
Yep.
today's workshop. Enjoy
Absolutely.
yourselves. That is fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that, Emma. I really appreciated not only your enthusiasm last year in working with the writing self-study, but when we talked in relationship to this workshop today, all of the programs that you've worked with, and it's been really great to provide that experience of the evolution in data, because again, like, as you know, imperfect as some of the elements are, like, we are striving to get better, and that's why it's been so wonderful to work with Mark and Iris on these workshops as well as all the other supports. So again, we set up an email address that answers these questions that you might have, called cprdata@yorku.ca. Use that email to ask those questions that you have. I see there's questions in the chat. A lot of them seem fairly like specific to your program. I'm going to ask to maybe leave those questions to email so that so that you can get the information you want and not just something really quick. But I wanted to know if anyone had any big scale questions about using the data or where to find things that you're okay recording, and then I'll turn recording off, and then you can ask other questions if you had. So does anyone have any kind of big scale questions? Gail.
Hi, thanks everyone.
If you want to start by introducing yourself too.
Yeah, I'm Gail Fraser. I was undergraduate program director, and now I'm doing this. So I'm not doing, I'm not UPD, but for the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change. And so we're fast tracking this. So I'm like way into these data. And my question is, as a unit, we have already been collecting data on enrollments by courses, and they're the November data, right? So they're not like first enrollments, but like the cutoff every year. And so I had already generated, I think it's an Appendix G, of course, there's a course enrollment data by year. And it's actually a way more straightforward way to present it, because I have the course and then years of enrollment going across. So my question is, can we use some of our own data and these appendices, as long as they mostly match up with what OIPA is telling us, or are we forced to use the OIPA formatted data, which has an individual Excel file by year and is not that efficient in presenting it? It's probably not the kind of question you want, but
No, actually, that's a really great question, because, and Jennifer might want to tag the answer to this as well, because it actually aligns with stuff about the student data. So, for example, we say for the student data, you can use the ISR, you can use NESI if we have stuff, but if you have other opportunities or other data sources, you can use those. Just make sure you tell us about the methodology that you used it. And you actually, if that is a intricate methodology, you might actually want to provide the methodology in a separate appendices, like G.1, I don't know, whatever. But if you are using other data sources that you have created, and again, I'm thinking of the student data, then you need to flag how you've collected that data and like which data there are. Jennifer, do you want to say anything else to that?
Sure. I mean, I really can see how it would be helpful to format this in a way that makes sense for your way of looking at data, but we want to make sure that we have the right numbers if they're being collected in a different way. So I think that so long as the numbers are the same, if you have, regardless of how you have them lined up in different rows and columns, would be okay. But I think it would be pretty important to have the same counting mechanism so that you have the same number of students.
Yeah, and again, if you have, like, if you wanted to add both tables, or so that you can demonstrate, like, these are the numbers, this is our methodology, this is what we collected, this is also what data OIPA collected, this is maybe why there are some differences in a couple areas here, that is useful. You want to be able to kind of show that work so that reviewers are able to understand the way that you came up with your analysis, not just the hard numbers, but the analysis around those numbers. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. If I can just follow up, because I mean, I was, I've been putting a lot of questions in the chat, but I do find this issue around Appendix O and Appendix G, it's like convoluted, because I already have spreadsheets that are telling me the enrollments by year, and I have them by program. And the way OIPA has provided me the data is saying I have to go back and do all of this, pull out all of that work on their data to make it look like the data that I already have. Right?
Yeah.
So it's actually not that efficient on what we were given. And I understand that courses are used by multiple programs, but we already have that information and I already have it laid out. But at any rate, so it's a little, let's just say, frustrating to be having to redo work in which I already have it all in front of me.
Well, I think that the best solution to that is to set up a meeting and that we can take a look at what we have just to make sure that everything is in alignment. Because yes, we don't want you replicating work. We want you to be able to spend the time on analysis. And so maybe a meeting with a screen share would be the best option. Iris, I see that your hand is raised, Stephen, but Iris, do you have a comment to that?
Yes, I think, I mean, for EUC, it's a very special case because essentially we don't have the information in terms of how the courses is aligned to the individual program. So I think if you already have that information, definitely I encourage you to not spending additional time and just to spot check whether the enrollment are correct, because we actually outlined the data source that we are providing this information and the connections between the different reports. So if you are able to kind of see, oh, these enrollment are correct, I suggest you to use your own local information in this case. But I do want to recommend in the future, because Jennifer and I are working on whether it's possible to pull information from the LMS and in the future to provide actually program level information, course information, so that we don't have to do this additional steps to find courses particularly like meet those program requirements. And if we can directly pull that from system, then in the future, that will be the direction that we are going with. So right now, I definitely think just going with the most efficient way, but just to make sure that, you see the enrollments, because we are providing section level enrollment and who's taught that. So if you have local data, just a spot check, just to make sure that they look right to you.
Okay, thanks so much. I mean, I would have thought like all of that information is on the academic calendar, which courses are being used in which programs. So I don't really know where you would want me to provide that information somewhere else going forward, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember that, like, there's actually quite a few exceptionalities this year. Humanities and social science and EUC are having data that are different than just kind of like a straightforward single program. And so, the templates or the ways that we've organized things are supposed to work for kind of big general generic program, but with these differences in the ways that the programs are, being worked through this year, maybe make the data a little bit different to navigate. But we're here to support. The data is supposed to be something that helps you, and so we can follow up if you have questions like yours, Gail, as people are working through it. Steve, if you want to start by introducing yourself too.
Thanks, everyone. This is just a really quick question. One of the issues with the WIPA data is that there's a cutoff that's usually a year behind and a lag to when that data is available, from what I've seen. Yeah, we're able to update the data with our own numbers that we've collected. Is that a normal practice so we can get up to and present reviewers with the data that really for 23, 24, and even potentially with application data for 24, 25? Thanks.
That's a great question. Jennifer, do you want to take that? Oh, or Iris?
Iris has her hand raised, yeah.
Yeah, so we will do an update of the academic program report, which include all the key metrics for the program in May. So at that time, you can go on the OIPA website to download your particular program level academic program report, and so that will actually give you the most updated current year, like the 23-24 year data, including all the retention number, because I don't know how at a program level you can consistently calculate, for example, retention number and graduation, or because some of the data are kept centralized and they have certain common methodology of collecting those data. So we do periodic updates for them at a certain cutoff time. So you will get an update for that particular summary of the whole academic program report at that time.
Okay, for some smaller programs though, it is like for especially graduate programs, collecting that data is that we collect it ourselves, right? So we can update for even 24, 25 admission cycle. Thanks. We'll wait for May then.
Thanks for that. And again, if you're adding, if you're collecting your own data, again, I'm thinking of student data as well, just identify the methodology that you did, right, to pair that. Any other questions that you're okay with being recorded? Okay, I'm going to just do a quick goodbye so we have it on the recording, and then I'll stop recording, and then you can ask any other questions in our remaining 5 minutes or so. So please make use of the email address that will help you with this, cprdata@yorku.ca. You can also email myself or Jennifer, the UCAP email address, Iris, Mark as well, but I think he probably will move it over to Iris. And then Emma has also been so kind in providing her support, but also she has a full-time job at York. So please don't take advantage of that time too much, but I think she will be back. Because, pardon?
Thank you. It's my excitement that just jumped.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So thank you all for attending. Hopefully it's useful as you're working through it. We know that if you're not used to working with this type of data, it's difficult. And we also know that the way it is formatted sometimes can be difficult, but there is a logic behind it. So, be open with us in helping to work through that logic. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording. We'll see if there's additional questions.